everybody's in place, everything's working on that first day. And from a tenant point of view, the ideal will be that they are aware of what's happening, but notice no difference whatsoever. So since we last updated the council, we submitted the CHP registration application at the end of May. A huge amount of work went into that. A lot of approvals through our board, but I'm very aware of a huge amount of work that our management and staff did in getting that documentation ready. We're through the first gateway, and the application's currently been evaluated. There'll be some back and forth between Chara and ourselves. I've got no reason to think that we won't successfully have registration within a very short time. So the priority now is to complete the remaining aspects of the operational transition and to finalise and sign the lease agreement, which is one of the key documents, along with the funding agreement and the relationship agreement, in order to begin operating in August. Now, you'll recall last time we briefed you, we had a target start date or an intended start date of the 1st of July. We have needed to push that back to the 1st of August, principally to allow us more time to finalise the details of that lease agreement. That's obviously an agreement that needs to endure for many years and needs to be right, needs to be accurate, needs to reflect correctly so that it sets both of our organisations up for long-term success. We did everything we possibly could to avoid pushing the start date back to 1st of August, but on balance, that certainly now, in our view and in Council's view, is the right thing for us to do so that we are really set up for long-term success. And obviously, the stand-up on the 1st of August is the first key target. There will be more work to do in that first year to complete and close out other aspects of the transition.
So this is just a reminder slide. We talked through these work streams last time with you. This is just how we're organising ourselves and how we've been doing that over the last 3 months. So we'll just talk through each of the work streams, where we're up to and what the tasks are that we still have to complete in each one. So as we updated you when we last spoke in April, the board is now fully established and up and running, and you see the pictures of all of our board members at the bottom of the screen there. Obviously, Rebecca, Tim, and Liz are people who will be very familiar to you from around your own table. We're very fortunate to have very good council appointees and iwi appointees to the board, along with Matt and myself appointed by council, and 3 independent trustees that were recruited through a process more recently. We've certainly got some real diversity of experience and diversity of thought around the board table. We've completed the variation of the deed of grant with government. This is ready to be submitted to the Minister for signing. This gives confidence for the council that all of the CHP arrangements are consistent with the council's obligations under that deed. All of our registrations are submitted, Charities Office, Companies Office, Inland Revenue, and also a bank account, which we've got open as well. And the funding agreement and relationship agreement are finalised. They were approved at our board a couple of weeks ago. My understanding is we're going to physically sign those on Friday of this week at our board meeting. And then that lease agreement that I referred to earlier just requires completion. We spent some time working through the lease term sheet. All of that is now been incorporated into the final lease agreement so that that's ready for signing before the 1st of August. So I'll now hand over to Angelique, who can speak to some of these more operational matters.
Thank you, Andrew. Kia ora koutou. Sorry I can't be there in person. Like Andrew, I was unable to. I've got COVID, but I'll be free on Friday, hopefully. So yeah, just to talk through where we're at in terms of recruitment. I'm really pleased to say that all of the roles in phase 1 are filled. So obviously myself as Chief Executive and all the roles listed there, we have made appointments. We don't have anyone that has started in those roles yet. They will be starting, first one's coming on board on the 17th of July through to the 1st of August with the rest of the city housing team that's coming across. We've got some great talent across those roles, some existing staff and some external appointments. So really looking forward to having them on board. We've got all the new arrangements in place. As Catherine mentioned, I'm very lucky to have Paul Davies as the Community Housing Relationship Lead. You all know Paul, and he's been an integral part of this whole process over the last 3 years as Principal Advisor in the City Housing team, and also has those existing relationships with HUD and other agencies that we have to work closely with. In the last update, we also mentioned this, so the Housing Upgrade Phase 2 program, which was the City Housing Capital Works team, are now in infrastructure and delivery within Council with Siobhan and Yeston's team and Paul. Go to the next slide, please. Yep, so that's just a quick overview of the structure. So as I touched on, those roles in red are the ones that have been hired. The light grey are existing roles that were existing city housing roles, and all of those roles have come across to Te Toi Mahana from 1st of August. And then the dark grey roles will be ones we'll be recruiting later. They weren't necessary from day one of the trust, but we will be going to market for those sometime in the future. I hope you all like how our structure is in our Te Toi Mahana colours as well. One more, yep. So this is about setting up the new organisation. So we have our new premises in Manners Street, a few doors down from the service centre, Arapaki, which is great. There's 2 phases to the office fit out, so it's well underway at the moment. But the second phase of work to enable us to be tenant facing will be completed by Waitangi weekend, and then we'll take over service from Arapaki. Great to be so close to where our tenants currently go to, and in that interim period, as it mentions in that slide, the service centre can ring us up and say, hey, we've got a tenant here, and our staff can easily walk a few steps down to meet with them at the Arapaki offices in the interim. It also allows the ability for Arapaki staff, once we're up and running, just to physically sort of point out where our office is, which is right on a main bus route, which is great. Our contact centre continues to take calls for the first 12 months, and we have a service level agreement signed between the 2 parties, which is great. As I say, the office site fit out is going fantastic, and we've got a site blessing being planned in early July, so an invite will be going out for that very shortly. We've got our social media presence all registered. The website is under development. It's looking fantastic. We've got a wonderful Māori designed firm, Whakaaro Factory, doing that work for us. And then, as you've seen already, our brand to match our beautiful name that was gifted to us, Te Toi Mahana, has been complete, which has been woven all through our website and social media channels. And then I think we're back to Catherine.
Sorry, I think Andrew's given you the highlights on this one. So we submitted our registration our application for CHP registration with Chara at the end of May, which is a huge amount of work, and very excited to have got that milestone completed on time as we had planned. The process takes about 60 days to work through if you get through the first time with limited kind of rework required. So the way this works is you submit your application, they do a first evaluation of all the documentation that's provided. They come back with feedback that could be substantive or it could be very minimal. Hopefully it's very minimal. And then they pass the one part of the regulator does the first evaluation, and then they pass the set of documentation on to the to a second to the official regulator, if you like, who does a second evaluation of the material and gives that final registration sign-off. So a huge amount of work went into this application. You basically have to produce all of the documentation that your organisation needs to govern itself, run itself, and all submitted under those 5 criteria there, which are the performance standards that Chara will continue to monitor the trust on an ongoing basis.
It's me. So Council's still going to be providing some systems and services to Te Toi Mahana. as Andrew mentioned at the start, our number one priority is on service continuity, around being able to contact us, maintenance requests and so forth. We've got some transitional arrangements. We've locked in the first year, and then after that there'll likely to be some further changes. ICT equipment and support has all been covered, and as I touched on before, the contact and service centre are working with us through this period. Our FM facilities management will still be through Ventia for at least the first year. All the transitional services are in place and ready for the 1st of August. The only sort of outstanding item is our finance and payroll systems, which have, because we're coming out of council and one council, we have to set up our own, but that's going well and training's underway this week. Go to the next slide, thank you. So this is a really important work stream around tenant engagement and feedback. As many of you know, we've been running tenant drop-in sessions throughout May. We had great attendance for those. I attended over half, and I think we had about 11 in total. Paul was at many of those as well. 160 tenants across those sessions, which is a really big turnout for us. In comparison, when we ran the drop-in sessions for the annual plan consultation to establish the CHP, we had about half the volume turning up to individual sessions. So that was really good to see. We've got regular tenant newsletters going out. We've got the joint project with MSD around our wait list. Paul's been leading that, and that's going really well, and they've been fantastic working with us, and we'll be actually reaching out to those applicants to support them through the process. We've got our tenancy advisors, obviously, well prepared for this and able to answer questions, and the project website is continually being updated. There's some great information on there. We've sent out a letter in the last week letting tenants know about the change of date to the 1st of August. And then throughout July, there's a lot of communications going out. So around rent payment changes, MSD support, making sure tenants are accessing those support products such as accommodation supplement, a temporary additional support if they're eligible for working for family through IOD and so forth. Our new 0800 number will go live on the 1st of August, which will go straight into our contact centre. Really, really pleased about that, that our tenants don't have to pay to call us anymore. So we'll be definitely advertising that far and wide. And then the process to log maintenance requests will remain the same. So tenants can ring us, they can use the Fixit app or send a text. That's all from me. And back to Catherine.
Last one here, just all the things you would expect us to be doing in order to close out a business unit as we lead up to the end of the financial year, making sure we've got our record keeping and things in place from a council record side, and also preparing information and things that need to be transferred, and preparing the staff to move in the next few weeks as well. So a lot of work going on in there, and there's just a few photos there for those of you who came to the City Housing function at the end of April might recognise some of them, and some of the stories that Gabor talked us through there, and just a lovely recognition really that City Housing has been a major part of this council and the city for a long time, and so this is a big change and a big transition, and sad in some respects but very exciting in other respects. And lots of great things to look forward to.
Indeed. Thanks, Catherine. And yeah, the celebration event for the closeout of City Housing certainly made for a good opportunity to recognise all of the excellent work that's been done over the past 60 years, and certainly some interesting to be presented there as well. So thanks to Catherine and Angelique for your part in presenting this afternoon, and for all the work that you've been doing. We will be happy to take some questions in just a moment, but before we do, we've got Tim, Rebecca and Liz sitting at our board table and at your council table, and I just wanted to provide an opportunity for Tim, Rebecca or Liz to make any comments or to say anything before we move to questions.
Kia ora, Andrew. On the spot?
Yeah.
No pressure. Kia ora, Andrew and Angelique. I hope you're feeling all right, Angelique. And I guess I just want to, this has been, I think Tim would say the same, it's been quite an intensive period, and but it's been wonderful to both be kind of there for the birth of Te Toi Mahana, and I just want to say an excellent board and a great process to be part of. But I particularly want to acknowledge the work that has been done on the council side, and really Catherine has been sensational in her support, and so as both a councillor and as a trust board member, I particularly want to acknowledge the support that you have given us to go through this process, and it's I think with me and Tim, I think we're sort of on a we sometimes express different views around the trust table, but also working together as, it's been great to have Tim on there as well, and it's been a really great process to be part of. So thank you to everybody, really, and, it's a little bit disappointing to have to kind of sort of push the start line out a little bit, but we are nearly there.
Great, thanks, Becca. Tim, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think there's one thing which very much a message for my fellow councillors is that TTM is very much a creature of the agreements which it's going to ultimately sign with council, which is a lease agreement and a funding agreement and a relationship agreement. And the fact that we're still not in, we still don't have the final form of those agreements, and indicates that, getting that sort of thing right is quite important. I mean, we're councillors transferring a large amount of responsibility to this vehicle, and there's sort of umbilical cord is going to be well and truly attached to council care of these agreements. So I think that where this is going to be interesting from your perspective is going to be in a year's time, when you'll be able to sit down with, whether it's Rebecca and I or Andrew or whoever, and say, how is this actually going on the core function here of improving the quality of social housing provision in Wellington, and also enabling us to actually access more capital for upgrade of our facilities that we've got. And we really are at the very early stage, and a lot of it is very, very, very legalistic. There's, at the moment, there's just most of our job, although there's been a huge amount of work done by Angelique and Jetta to actually get the entity up and running, really, in some ways, the core responsibility of the directors in the short term has just been to understand the nature of the agreements that are actually emerging from the negotiations between the various legal teams. So it's which isn't necessarily a lot of fun, but it is going to be the foundation of how things go from here.
Ka pai toi mahi, that it certainly is not lost on any of us, the great undertaking that a lot of our staff have done to be able to get us to this point. Thank you, Angelique and Andrew, for joining us online. Councillors, do we have any partai? I'm going to start. It was Deputy Mayor Foon first. Sorry, Laurie, could you check your microphone on, just because we are live streaming as well?
I thought I did. Sorry. I realised I was also rolling out a few questions at the same time. So just a wellbeing update, particularly on our tenants, and just how they are travelling with the process. And
Angelique, do you want to grab this one?
Certainly. I have to first have a bit of a caveat that, I've been in with the trust since 14th of April, so I'm not on the ground as much as I used to be. But I did, as I say, attended many of those sessions, and obviously still talking to the team every few days. I think it was, from what I've heard, a bit of a non-event, in terms of the push out of the dates, that some tenants are obviously still finding out about that. But overall, there's been such a long lead into this decision and the move that we feel that the vast majority of tenants know the process that's coming up. Still some anxiety, of course, about what this will look like, and building that trust in this new entity. And I think that's just going to be proof in the pudding. It's that reputational piece about that day one that they don't notice a drop in service or response from Te Toi Mahana. So, I look forward to seeing in a couple of months, once we're up and running and getting that feedback on the ground for how people are feeling. But our hope is that, especially in this first few months, they don't notice a difference, that their tenancy advisors are still same familiar faces and they know how to contact us when they need to.
Just on the back of that, councillors, on Friday, after the board made their decision supporting the pushback, you would have seen the copy of the letter that was sent out to all our tenants. We emailed that out to all of our tenants yesterday, and every response that we got back, even though there wasn't a call to action as such, thanked us for keeping the tenants so well informed. So we've had no negative pushback via the email letters that were sent out. So
you can do another one if you want.
Then just around, and forgive because we get so much information, the fund that we had put aside for I'll just say hardship fund, where is that in the process in terms of if tenants need to access that? Is it accessible now?
It's not accessible now. The mechanism that needs to be put in place for that is one of the agreements Tim was referring to. So it sits in the lease agreement where it says this is the fund that the council is providing the chip. It has the parameters in the lease agreement that the council agreed back in March, I think it was, around what the purposes of that fund is and what it can be used for. What will have to sit around that effectively after go live is an operational policy around how the trust will take that fund and determine criteria for using it and things. So there's some work that will need to occur off the back of that, but that will be the funding will be transferred when we sign the lease agreement.
Right.
So it'll be there on the day one.
Good. And just a follow-up question to that, will that be something that council will get reported back to, like just how that's travelling and the availability?
Yep. So in the relationship and reporting agreement, there is you might remember from March, or you might not, which is totally fine. There were a set of reporting requirements in the back of that paper that talked about all the measures that need to be reported on a regular basis, and one of those will be what the fund is used for, and that sort of thing.
I've got a part A. It's just around information and user interface. Now, I know that tenants can still use the council phone number to contact if they've got an issue. Will there be a Te Toi Mahana website set up, or how can the members of the public know how the project's tracking, or also the customer interface of it?
Angelique, do you want to take one?
Yeah. Great question. The website will be up and running by the 1st of August. So we've taken some existing content from the city housing pages on the Wellington City Council website, but also added in, all the different ways to contact us. Of course, aware that not everybody has a device or access to the internet. So that's why there's still been letters sent out. The Arapaki staff and the contact centre staff will keep everybody informed. The 0800 number and the 499 4444 number will essentially just go to the same place. It will just pop up with a different message. So even if tenants forget or don't know our 0800 number, they'll still have that same level of service with the same people answering those calls.
Kia ora, thanks, Angelique. Deputy Mayor, oh my gosh, I'm all over the place today. Councillor Frew.
Terry. Just sorry if I've missed this, but the asset management plan for, because they'll still be owned by Wellington City Council, how much progress has been made on identifying the condition of the buildings you're receiving and making, what's the plan for having a really good asset management?
So an asset management strategy is one of the requirements for registration. So there is a draft version of that that has gone off to the regulator already. And then the idea is that strategy will get reviewed in line with the council's LTP processes every 3 years. So it will then be updated and reflected and fed into that process. But that will need to be that'll need to be a joint activity that's done on a regular basis. It's one of the most critical interaction points between the two organisations, given the way the ownership of the assets works and the way the relationship around maintenance works. So there will be an ongoing and close working relationship on that.
Is there any thought to making that fairly public? You know, like transparency around, you know, what needs to be done, and yeah, just because
it'll be the information will be, because it will be part of the LTP, it'll be publicly available through there.
Cool. Oh, Ben McNulty online.
Hey team, just because I went and had a site visit out at Granville a few months ago, and I know those are due to be demolished and then returned to Mana Whenua. Are those assets coming over to the CHP or staying with council?
There are no assets. Yeah. I'll pass it over to Catherine. Yeah.
They will be, so the Granville building will be included in the lease from day one because there are still tenants in the premises at the moment, but as that is progressively vacated, when it's vacant, it will come out of the lease and be demolished and the land will be returned at that point. But because we've still got tenants who are living in the building, that will be included as part of the leasing arrangements from August.
Is that demolition cost going to be Te Toi Mahana or WCC, or to be decided?
Kia ora, Councillor McNulty. We're currently working very closely with the 10th Trust as a part of the handback process. We're working through primarily, number one, a timeline, which is based on our tenants being rehomed. The Trust is also considering the way that it wants the whenua handed back to it. And so we are working with them. We're obviously letting them take the lead on this process because it is their land. And so we'll continue to work really closely with them on that.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Councillors, I see no other partai for the meeting. So, yeah, I guess want to just end with a thanks, and it's been a really long journey. And this will be the last kind of formal briefing that we'll have from you guys pre-August. So that's very exciting. Yeah, thanks for all of your time.
Kia ora, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Angelique.